This week's Four Questions Journalist Spotlight is brought to you by Leff's Atlanta Media, Atlanta's best journalist database. Subscribe at leffsatlantamedia.com.
Welcome to another edition of our Four Questions Journalist Spotlight. We're talking today with Donnell Suggs, who is a prolific writer around Metro Atlanta. I'm going to say prolific because he's going to talk about a couple of publications for which he writes, and one more than others, but you see his name in a lot of places. So we're gonna talk through that. Good morning.
Morning. How you doing?
I'm good on this beautiful day. By the time this airs, we'll have the results of the SEC game on Saturday. So
I'll be there.
You're gonna be at the game?
Yes.
Awesome. Very good. In a personal or professional capacity?
Professional, unfortunately. I went to school in New York, so I've got no horse in that fight. It's all about the numbers and how it works out as far as business is concerned.
Very good. All right. So what I want you to let's talk first. Just give me a little bit of background about you. You mentioned you're from New York. Can you give me a little background about where you come from and what brought you to the August position that you're here with now?
Well, Atlanta has been my home for the last 15 years. So I got here in 2006, and it's changed 500 times since I've got here. So my wife is born here, so I know it's changed 100 times for her. I got here in 2006, and I got here because I was going to work with the police department. I worked with NYPD, and I transferred to Atlanta, and I thought that was going to be my move, and I kind of switched gears when my first love of journalism, the opportunity started coming with papers like the Atlanta Voice and the Atlanta Daily World, which no longer prints. But they had an office on Auburn Avenue when I got here. And I used to go there and I get my assignment, and then we'd go out and get the paper every Wednesday over by Auburn Avenue, that newsstand. So this is really old dated stuff.
Yeah, that's a shame about the Daily World not printing anymore. I mean, you still see it online. Yes, but yeah.
They still have that booth in the airport too, I believe.
They have the store, right? The Atlanta Daily World store. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I saw it just recently, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. So first journalism job. Where'd you start out?
The Atlanta Daily World gave me an opportunity to cover the Hawks, if you can believe that. They didn't have anyone covering the Hawks. And they say, new guy, do you want to cover the NBA? And coming from New York, you would have never walked off the street and had an opportunity to cover the New York Knicks or the Yankees or the Mets or the Giants or Jets. You just wouldn't. And I just couldn't believe that. I had some college newspaper clips and a couple of freelance things here and there, and I just jumped at the chance.
All right. So what year was that?
07.
07. Okay. All right. So when I worked at Turner back in late 90s, early 00s, they would, part of the package, they would give you tickets to the Braves and the Thrashers and the Hawks. And the Hawks were not playing particularly well back then. So the idea was they would come around at like 5:00 in the afternoon and say, "Hey, who wants to go to the Hawks game tonight? Here's some tickets." And but they were all tickets in a certain little section, right? So when they put you on TV, it looked like the arena was pretty full, but they only showed the one section. That's the trick. So
they don't have to do that anymore.
They don't have to do that anymore. Yeah, I know. Isn't that nice?
It changed last Saturday against the Knicks, so it's fine.
Yeah. Okay. So Daily World. Okay. So then what was the next step?
Then the Atlanta Voice gave me a more expanded role of covering crime, schools, you name it. Just every week I had a story in the Atlanta Voice. And I've literally had a story in the Atlanta Voice almost every week since 2008.
Wow.
That's how far back we go.
Okay. That's
on staff.
That's great.
Yeah. I had a great relationship with the publisher, Janice Ware. She's been fantastic for me and a mentor. So no matter where I went full time, I always had an Atlanta Voice story due probably once every couple of weeks for that long.
That's awesome. Yeah, we talked to Dawn Montgomery a couple of weeks ago about what she's doing at the Voice. So I love the digital changes that you guys are doing, and she and Janice, you guys are all putting a lot into it. So that's great to see. All right. So and you mentioned earlier that's a freelance component, right? So, but you have a full-time job, right?
Right. Now I'm with the Atlanta Business Chronicle, which is unbelievable for when I started back then to think that I would be here. In the meantime, I had a whole lot of stops to get here. It wasn't just a big jump.
Yeah. Okay. So let's we should mention that. What were some, just so because there are a lot of stops before you get to a place like the Chronicle. So what were some of the stops in between?
How much time you got? We go Barrow County News,
right?
So you're going up north, then come on back down to the Clayton News Daily. I was there when Robin was there, and a whole bunch of Robin Camp and a bunch of folks. Then you got to go to the Noonan Times Herald. Then I got to go to House and County, to the House and Home Journal. That was a long stop. That was almost 4 years. I love that. Then you go to Savannah. I work for the Catholic Church's newspaper, the Southern Cross, and that was for a year. What else? There's a lot of stops. And then I came after the Southern Cross. I came here to the Chronicle. So in between that decade, there's about 6 or 7 papers. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, great, and that's a good geographic diversity. So that, I mean, I'm sure kind of knowing those different parts of the state is going to help you in your beat here at the Chronicle now too, because you've got you're broadly based. You don't know just, not say just, but don't just know Metro Atlanta. You know the broader metro area.
I think it helped. I think it helped in my recruitment for this job. I think it helped during my hiring process of not being someone who only knew the Atlanta business community. I've worked in North and South and in between in Middle Georgia. So I kind of came with some versatility and experience when I came over.
All right. So talk about your beat at the Chronicle now. What's your focus and what are you supposed to be doing?
Right now I cover commercial real estate and development. So from either the ground lease of the land all the way up until this new building gets built, and this is how many floors, this is how many units is inside, and everything in between. The development, which is crazy in Atlanta because it never stops developing, obviously, is my beat. So I can do a hotel one day and a multifamily apartment sale the next. So
right.
It's been really exciting.
What do you see as one or two of the biggest development opportunities happening in Atlanta right now?
Well, it's always going to be multifamily. There's so many people moving here. You have to have apartments. You have to have apartments for people to live in. And there's no area in Atlanta that's not getting some type of development, from Chamblee and the Dunwoody area to that central perimeter area, all the way down to obviously Midtown. You see the cranes in the sky every second. And even downtown's getting a little love. So there's no area in Atlanta that's not getting some development.
I saw some numbers this week that said that nationally, we were short some millions of homes, both residential and multifamily. And I can't remember what the number was off the top of my head, but it was the shortage was millions of people who would not, couldn't have homes because there just were not enough.
We don't have, and I think it might be an American problem, but in this city, we're growing so fast. And unfortunately, what that means is you're building new product, which is very expensive, and you and I might be able to afford it, thanks to God, but a lot of people can't. So when you keep on moving here, you keep on coming here for that dream or what have you, and you get priced out, then it's like we don't have enough units, quote unquote, affordable units for people to be able to say, I moved to this town, I have this one regular job, and I can afford to live here. It just doesn't work that way in Atlanta. For now. Yeah,
and certainly the price of building materials earlier in the year has been a huge issue. That's the price of lumber, from what I'm seeing, has come down quite a bit from what it was 8 or 9 months ago. I think it's still higher than it was 2 years ago. But part of that is part of that's a distribution and supply chain issue too, right?
And the supply chain issues, we're working on a big story on that too. That's all I can say about that. They're improving, and those lumber prices have improved, and those are improving. We still need to get more truckers. There's a shortage in that, so someone's got to bring it. And we also need more workers. Some people have to work in these places. So there's a lot going on.
Yeah, the trucking shortage is, I've seen a lot of stories about that. And I think Georgia, I think, is trying to do some things to make it easier, I think, for younger people to truck across state lines. Is that correct?
Yes, and get their CDLs as well. It's been very difficult normally. And it's an insurance thing. A major company doesn't want to give 19-year-old Johnny this truck with all this cargo on it and say, hey, listen, that's your CDL, kid. Good luck. It's like you need experience. So he has to be an intern, not an intern, but more of an apprentice, and ride along for a year or two before he gets it. So it's a lot going on. It's hard to just get people into that job like you can get them into a restaurant job or a retail job. So different.
Well, so many say, as you said, the insurance issues, the value of the cargo you're pushing,
exactly.
And just the the mental capacity of an 18-year-old versus someone who's been driving for 10 or 15 years. Yeah, just the
and that veteran driver is done with the long haul stuff for 2 days, 3 days. Now he's like, I want to come home at night. So he's doing more of the shorter routes. 10 years, 5 years in the business, I don't want to do the overnights. That's what you get the 21-year-old guy for. We just have to get that 21-year-old guy trained. So it's really hard to keep that cycle going.
Okay. What do you think about, there's a lot of entertainment industry development going on. How, talk for a second about places like what Gray TV is doing with the assembly area.
That project has been on the works for a long time, and Gray TV kind of took advantage of the fact that they wanted to do something with it and they needed someone to come in, and it's been really big. There's other things, Black Hall as well. There's a lot of things going on.
Yeah.
There's some stuff in Stone Mountain. I don't know if a lot of people know about that. I hope I'm not breaking any news, but there's a lot of that going on in Atlanta. We've always kind of been in the mix, but now it feels like this is the other Hollywood. It's always been the other Hollywood, but it's starting to really start to feel like that. How many times you pass filming here signs, or the crew, this crew, that crew signs? It's coming up. There are no areas that don't have it.
Right. I know Black Hall is, I think their plan is to double their space over the next 2 or 3 years. I know Ryan Millsap has gone off and kind of doing a different venture, but I know that I'm sure that expansion is still happening. And his vision, from what he and I talked about, was always to really build the ecosystem around the studio. So you have all the subsidiary businesses that benefit from that.
That's the big part of it. You have a studio space, you can do whatever you want. That's why Tyler Perry Studios is a great idea. It was a great idea, and it's a profitable idea, obviously. He just films his shows on his lot. I don't have to worry about finding space, sound stages, etc.
Yeah, and the biggest issue, I think, is just, it's not even capacity. It's not even finding the work. I mean, 5 years ago, some of the studio operators here in Atlanta were telling me that, we don't usually book more than 6 months in advance. And, recently they're telling me we're booked 2 years.
Right.
Just because, obviously the tax credit in Georgia is a great incentive.
Massive incentive.
Yeah. So that's bringing, 30% tax incentive savings on big projects. So that's huge. But just a diversity of scenes and settings and opportunities here in Georgia is pretty incredible.
I mean, our weather is a great advantage. It's hard to do a Christmas movie maybe, but the rest of the times of the year, you can always film it in Georgia. It's easy to talk a crew into coming down here in December, and you don't have to freeze your tail off like you would if you did the show in quote unquote Chicago. Right.
Although I do remember being over in Stone Mountain a couple of years ago in the early fall and kind of doing a double take, seeing snow on the ground.
Yeah.
and then I realized, what are all these wires doing here? Somebody, is out on that little island in Stone Mountain that somebody was shooting a scene for a Fox show, and there was fake snow all over the place.
How about that?
That's interesting. All right. So real estate development, what are some of the general issues, without telling me, obviously you don't want to drop with specific stories, but are there some big specific issues that you want to be focusing on, the Gulch or any of those kind of big developments that are important?
Yeah, Centennial Yards. That's major. That project there's a story. We can do a story every week on that project, one way or the other. And it's moving forward. It's moving slowly, and it has to. There's a lot to do with the Gulch, but it's moving forward. So that's a major thing we have to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and and you talked about affordable housing. A lot of advocates have talked about the importance of making sure that whatever that development is, that there's a good percentage of affordable housing in the mix. And there's been some concern about that. Are you feeling like the city is going to enforce that, or are you still kind of dubious about that?
Jeff, I never lied to you before. I don't want to start lying now. It's so hard to talk a developer into putting all the funding behind the project and say, oh, by the way, I need a third of it, a fourth of it to be quote unquote affordable. Even when it's quote unquote affordable, it's really not that affordable to a majority of the people who want to live in apartments in Atlanta. It's a very difficult thing to do. It's a hard promise to make. I know it's a campaign promise a lot of times. I know soon to be Mayor Dickens has really been pushing that. And I think he's going to have some really cool ideas, but it's just so hard to do. Now being on the side I'm on now, I know what kind of financing is behind it.
Yeah.
It's hard not for those companies to want to recoup their money and make a profit. So it's different.
Right. Well, and you get it's one thing to say, okay, here's what the rent's going to be, but then having the resources, the retail, the supermarkets around there for someone to be able to live there Right. You say, okay, we're gonna get a place to live here at Centennial Yards, but the nearest grocery store is where, up Ponce somewhere, maybe.
Ponce will be, there's nothing downtown. As far as grocery store, no,
Right.
you have to go to Ponce. Yeah. And that project might have some, it's more restaurant than anything else, but it might have some. Atlantic Station is the idea for me, what I consider a great urban mixed use development, because it has a little bit of everything, but that's not cheap.
Yeah, and that's where someone says, okay, we're going to put in like a mini Kroger or something like that. It's not going to be a full size, but it'll be big enough so that people can get food, fresh vegetables, and that kind of thing within, hopefully a couple of miles of where they are.
Right.
That is the challenge. All right, so let's jump to the kind of the more challenging questions. So what's this is the hardest question I always ask people, is what's something cool and fun about you that people might not know?
Well, I'm so transparent on Twitter that I don't know if people have spent 5 seconds looking me up on Twitter and LinkedIn. You know my whole life, including my son and what he's doing and what I'm having for dinner. I just believe in transparency. So what's the cool? I don't know. I want to write a book. I don't know how cool that is. I do want to write a book.
Well, what's your topic going to be?
I'm still debating if it's going to be either regarding the supply chain issues we've had and how that system works. I'm learning so much about that. Like, I don't think we realize that when it comes on the ship from China, that's far from the last stop when it docks. There's a lot of people involved, and I'd love to sit with those people and kind of go through that for a year.
Yeah.
Someone has to pilot, someone has to drive the ship. Someone has to get the cargo ready. People stay on these boats for a long time. So it's always intrigued me. And then recently reporting on the story for that, I'm like, wow, this is really cool. I don't know if it's for everyone, but I'd like to spend a year doing that. So that's an idea that you would not get from me on Twitter. I'm
always impressed that those ships don't roll over. You're stacked like all these containers up really high. I'm like,
sure.
Yeah, and every once in a while you'll hear about one of them, losing a container in high seas, but not very often. And I was thinking, man, whose packages were in that box?
Right.
It's going to be at the bottom of the ocean forever.
Yeah, you're not getting that back. That's out.
Yeah. All right. So, give me a sampling. I'll give you a choice here. Either the last book you've read or the last podcast you've listened to.
Well, I'll give you the book because I reread it again. The Suspect by what's that? Kent Alexander, and I forget the other young man's name. It's about Richard Jewell.
Was that a Kevin Salwin one? Was that Kevin?
Kevin Salwin. That's the other author. Right?
Okay.
The co-author. Yep. That book was phenomenal. And forget these movies. That book was really good. Obviously Ken Alexander was involved at the time.
Yeah.
And it's so detailed. I enjoyed reading that for a second time. There's an ebook as well if someone doesn't want to read it.
Okay.
But I suggest anyone that's interested in Atlanta or was here back then or just moved here, you learn so much about Atlanta and Atlanta journalism from that book. Besides the fact that about the Jewell case, it's a really interesting book.
Yeah, I was here for all that. So
you were.
Yep. All right. Favorite local restaurant?
Everyone's gonna laugh. And if you follow me on Twitter, it's Corner Cafe down on Piedmont.
Okay.
My spot. I have a table there at this point.
That's like next to your office, right?
Yeah, it's down Peachtree and then make a left on Piedmont. And I'm there. I just came from this morning with a client.
All right.
Or subject. And I spend so much time there with my little meetings and what have you. It's my spot. I just love it there.
That's good. You walk in and you don't even have to ask. They say, here's your coffee, Mr. Say.
The oatmeal with the berries and brown sugar. You already know that, and orange juice.
Very good. All right. Favorite guilty pleasure.
Oh, okay. What do I do that would be considered? Well, okay. Well, I have to have. It feels, and I shouldn't do this. I have to have a sweet tea almost every day. And it's almost not even something that I really want as much as I need it near me.
Yeah.
It's that blanket. And my wife tells me I got to stop that though.
Can have something to hold on to.
Right. You just need a sip. And it's actually over there where I moved. I always have to have it. It's not good though. You shouldn't, especially from down here. The McDonald's stuff, forget about it. Don't drink that stuff. But right. I do. It's a guilty pleasure because I know I shouldn't have it.
Do you have where do you get it? Do you have a favorite place you get it?
Yes. The Corner Bakery, not Corner Cafe, the Corner Bakery right next to our office, right before you get to JLL. Right between the Atlanta Business Chronicle. It's really good because it's not that sweet. It's almost like it's a Starbucks-esque sweet tea.
Gotcha.
And when I go in there, she knows medium, and I get a medium cup all the time, and I'll hold on to it all day. But I love the flavor of that.
All right. Okay. So, what's a local getaway, a place you like to go to kind of get away from the work?
Well, getting away from the work, my wife and the kids, I have 2 kids, Kayla's 17 and Chase is 7. We go to Atlantic Station. My family loves Atlantic Station. That's why I'm always using it as the perfect example, because you don't have to shop. We don't even shop when we go, really. We'll go and we'll just walk around and look around and spend an hour there or something like that, kind of sit in that green space sometimes. Sometimes they'll play Atlanta United matches, well, when the season was on. On Sundays, they'll play a Falcon game.
Okay. Gotcha.
And we just go there and kick it there for an hour and a half. Then we got to go get pizza on Fellini's on Ponds.
There you go.
That's kind of our thing. If we're going to go to the Atlantic Station, we usually hang out. Sometimes the girls will go off and shop, and Chase and I will hang out in a green space, and then we'll all go get pizza on Ponds.
All right,
second spot in the city.
That's a good spot. Okay. All right. So, and the last kind of fun question is favorite non-work hobby.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, I'm not writing then. Okay. So if I'm not writing and I'm not reading any industry reports on construction rates and hotels, then it's still reading though. It's still reading, just not reading newspapers.
Okay.
It's reading books.
Do you like nonfiction, fiction, or a combination of both?
I'm a nonfiction guy. And I'm a biography guy if I can get it.
Okay.
I love to hear someone's story from beginning to end. That's why I kind of like your podcast. The Rodney Ho episode is one of my favorite because I didn't know he had that long of a career before he got here. So it was really cool.
Yeah. Everybody's got a good story to tell. It's kind of fun to. That's why I like doing this. It's a good way to kind of get a feel for somebody, and it's like, okay, you didn't just spring out of the ground and start writing for the Business Chronicle, and for people who are looking to get into the industry too. It's understanding that you got to put in the groundwork to get to the Chronicle. You can't. I mean, the Chronicle doesn't hire people right out of school.
Not me.
Yeah. I don't think
they're out of school.
Yeah. But the Chronicle's always had a deep base of very talented reporters, and a lot of them stay there for a long time. So I worked with the paper for 35 years or so, going back before David Allison and Ed Baker, and Ed was there, I guess, when I started. But yeah. But
well, DA's on 37 years.
Pardon? Is he on 30? Is he on 37? So let's see. So I think when I first met him, I think he was covering technology. I want to say,
okay.
I believe. I think he was there. And it's funny because there was a time in the mid '90s when every paper had a technology section or a technology writer, and they covered a lot of it. There's still a lot of it happening, but it's just kind of gets covered. And now you've got Atlanta as your partner that kind of covers the.
And our reporter Erin Sharon, she does a really good job of that. She's great.
Yeah, no, she's good. I think she and I have talked a bit here and there, different stuff. All right, so I always end it with the open-ended. What did I forget to ask you that we didn't talk about? Kind of question.
Okay, I told you I was from New York, but I'm actually from Brooklyn. I tell people all the time, New York's a very big place. Where are you from? What city are you from? I'm from Brooklyn. I wanted to make sure I let that be known because back home they get on me about that.
Cross the bridge.
That's right.
Cross the bridge. There you go. Yeah, and that's important for New Yorkers. I grew up on Long Island, so people are like, oh, you're from New York. It's like, well, I'm not from New York City.
Right.
from the island. You got to go.
Someone the other day told me I'm from New York too. And I said, oh, great. Where are you from? And she said, Rochester. I said, oh, you're from New York State. She's like, oh, it's the same thing. I'm like, it's not. It'll take me 5 hours to drive to Rochester from Brooklyn. Yeah,
that's upstate, man. That's a long way.
Yeah, that's not here.
We call that upstate. I think I'm not sure if that's what they still call it, but that's what we used to call it, upstate. Oh, you're the upstate. I had a cousin who went to school. She was from the island too, and she went to school in Syracuse, and she did those winters there. And she's like, tough winter. 10-foot snow drifts.
Tough weather.
All right, my friend. Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much, and. If you think of anything else, let me know, and we'll add it into the show notes, as they say.
I really appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Very good. All right. Thanks, Donnell.
Have a good one.